I'm about to take a route I've used on and off for this past 33 years, but I wouldn't recommend it to anyone else unless you're a very careful driver who isn't afraid of heights. I put a GoPro camera up on the van roof to capture loads of footage of the routes I know, but today the A57 gave me a bit of a surprise, and I later learned that landslip had closed the road nearer to Sheffield. However, that didn't catch us out, although it was weirdly quiet when we eventually turned onto it. But it was at the Hope Valley Junction coming out of Bamford which made my mind up that I wasn't coming back the same way. Call it coincidence, but to me it seems to be getting a habit as to which highways department can cause the most mayhem with road closures and major roadworks. So on the way back we were just passing through Carver at the traffic lights when I made the decision to head for Hathersage and bypass Bamford altogether on a little known road which I'm not going to recommend you take unless, like I already said, you're a very careful driver with all your wits about you and you're not afraid of heights. But first we had to get to it, and it's accessed at Hathersage, and this is the route I took. It's a short up to Grindleford past the neatly mowed lawns of Stoke Hall, and the route follows the River Derwent. Not that you can see much of it, it's somewhere over to our right. The road follows the contours as near as it can, and that's what most roads do around here. They cling to the sides of the hills, avoiding steep climbs and keeping out of the valleys, where the rivers have a habit of getting in the way. It's a sensible arrangement and one that most drivers never think about. But later on, the route we're going to take wasn't content to simply follow the contours. Instead, it was carved into the hillside itself, and when we get there you'll see exactly what I mean. Rather than fording through the Derwent in Grindleford, actually it's a bridge, we do a left up past the Sir William Hotel, and there's lots of theories about which Sir William that was. But I have my own pet theory, because opposite there's a lane, and it's called Sir William Hill Road, so I reckon the hotel is named after the betting firm. Just kidding, of course. There may be a line down the middle of this road, but it's still quite narrow because it's squeezed between the edge of Mayhem Moor and the River Derwent. Mayhem, pronounced eam rather than I am, is over there to our left somewhere. It's one of Derbyshire's most famous villages, thanks to its association with the plague, and perhaps one day I'll make a video about that. Or perhaps not, because I video the other Peak District, the working one. We eventually come off the moor and dip into the Derwent floodplain across Leadmill Bridge and climb up into Hathersage before the fun begins. Now, if we turn left here and we head for Bamford, we'll simply get stuck in the roadworks. Or we can turn up here, which we do, and this is the decision point which I made, because I know this route and it's going to take us directly to Yorkshire Bridge at Ladybower and bypass Bamford completely, and that's something I don't recommend you do, because it's not a rat run, far from it. In fact, I didn't take the decision lightly. It can be a dangerous road. If you have a crash up here, the recovery driver probably won't have much sympathy. That's if you're able to call on one, because the mobile phone signal might be blocked by the surrounding hills. The trees hide the fact that we're climbing a steep hill. The gradient isn't immediately obvious because the road twists and turns and the woodland masks the horizon. But if we were to stop and look back, you'd soon realise how much height we've gained. Even so, we're only going as high as 1100 feet. It was once densely wooded right at the top. Old maps show trees reaching much further than they do today, but appearances can be deceptive. These hills are part of a working landscape where forests are planted, grown and harvested, one decade a hillside may be cloaked in trees. A few years later the timber has been cut, stacked and carried away. Then the cycle begins again. So when you see the tree line disappear, that's where the fun starts. The trees over at Dennis Knoll car park, which is usually approached from the Ringing Low side, are a recent addition. And the Ringing Low side might give you a clue why all of a sudden we see traffic now we've turned onto this stretch. It's a way across to Sheffield for those who know, or those being guided blindly by their Sat-Navs, and I'm sure you'll be able to tell who's being guided by technology, the ones we have to give way to. Today a navigation system simply sees a line on a map. It doesn't feel the exposure, it doesn't see the narrow passing places, it doesn't know that a road built for horse and carts is about to meet a modern SUV. As far as the software is concerned, this is just another way across the hills. So this is it. It's a cut and fill road, cut from the hillside, the fill rolling down the side to make a bank, both considerably steeper than the contours on the map would indicate. You wouldn't want to roll off this edge. Note the 19th century version of Armco, a few wooden poles replaced now and then with wires strung between. As far back as 120 years ago, you'd not be able to drive all the way across. It was access to a quarry on the Bamford side and access to the forestry on the side we came from. But sometime, perhaps between the wars, it was made into a through road. Engineers cut into the hillside above and tipped the spoil down the slope below. This is how they do it today. The result is a narrow shelf, part natural ground and part man-made embankment. It looks straightforward enough today, but standing here with horses, carts, picks, shovels would be a very different matter. It was joined up to this end by horse and cart teams alongside steam shovels and traction engines, and only made wide enough for 20th century traffic. It's definitely not made for the faint-hearted or the novice motorist. As we get nearer Yorkshire Bridge, the clough to our left, once a road but now private property, shows a 35% gradient sign. So what we've witnessed is a lot steeper than that. The tree cover of mainly deciduous and indigenous trees and neat gateposts tells us we're close to civilization again. And we emerge onto Ashopton Road at Yorkshire Bridge and head for Lady Bow Viaduct to take us back to the closed A57. If you'd like to see uncut videos of this trip around what I call the other Peak District, here's a playlist you can follow and the next up video of this area. Please consider subscribing to this channel, it helps me make more videos about the routes and histories in this part of the North Midlands. Thank you for watching.